Do you self-sabotage to a point where you have passed on opportunities because of a thought you actually believe to be true about you? This is definitely the video for you. We are talking about self-limiting beliefs. A self-limiting belief is a judgment we have about ourselves that we actually believe to be true, and it ends up restricting us in some way. It's a preconceived notion we have about ourselves that makes us doubt our abilities and actually makes us think that we will fail at something. And therefore you pass on opportunities because you think you will not deliver. What then causes these self-limiting beliefs? I like sharing from my own point of view because that is what is true to me. And the first point is past failures. Let's say you tried a business and it didn't do so well. Therefore, the limiting belief you have about yourself is that you are not good in business. So any chance that comes up for you to venture in business, you end up turning it down. The self-limiting belief in this case is that you are not good in business. The second thing is that we are scared to fail. Now, the way our bodies are wired is that we register negative emotions more than the positive ones. So as a way of protecting ourselves, we want to hang on to those very positive, those nice things, because we think that we might not recover when something bad happens. Let's take the example of a relationship. Maybe you say to yourself that you don't get into relationships because you don't do well in that. Maybe you've watched a few that didn't do well, and so as a way of protecting you from hurt or feeling the same kind of emotions, of negative emotions, your body processes a thought that you don't get into relationships because you don't do well in relationships. Well, the real reason is that you are scared of it failing. The third cause is feelings of inadequacy. I don't know about you, but sometimes I have the thought that my effort does not count or it doesn't amount to anything. And sometimes this could be as a result of things people have said to you, and it has registered in your mind that actually, you know what, I'm not adequate enough to deliver on this one. And that's why it's so important to be aware of such comments from even family, from colleagues, from your bosses, because it could get to you without even knowing it. I'm convinced that these feelings of inadequacy most often come from comparison. When you see people excel at what they are doing, we compare ourselves to them and we think that our ability, you know what, actually we are not doing something. Our efforts are not as good as theirs. We don't match up to what they are doing. So we end up settling for even mediocre things because we feel like we can only deliver up to this point and we leave the rest for others to do. Our minds have determined that this other person is better than us. And I experience this sometimes, even when I am recording these videos. I'm like, what am I doing here? There are people who are actually doing something better than me. I am comparing myself with people, but I have to constantly remind myself why I do it, because it's what I love doing, it's what I am passionate about. Feelings of inadequacy always come up every now and then in our different activities. We just have to be aware of them and try to push past these feelings. Now, I want us to consider two people from one of the greatest books I know. The first one, Moses. Moses believed that he had speech issues and that this was good enough for God to disqualify him from being used to deliver the Israelites out of Egypt. The second one being the spies that was sent by Moses to go and spy, in Canaan, and they come back with different reports. I'll link the chapter right here for anyone who is interested in that story, but we know of two of them that came back with a very good response, that the people, yes, they are strong, but we are stronger. We can actually conquer that place. But we have another bunch of people who come back with a negative feedback. And for them, it was them seeing themselves as very inadequate, and they thought that they cannot actually compete with the people living in that place at the time. Some of the people that lived in Canaan at that time are called the Nephilims, who are considered so strong. And one of the feedback from this group B that came back with a negative feedback was that we seem like grasshoppers in their eyes. That is actually so funny. How would they know how they looked from their eyes? That's already a very, very convicted mind of how self-limited, or I don't know even the right word to use, but they felt inadequate. They felt that they couldn't conquer these people. How then do we counter this kind of beliefs about ourselves? I have 4 points. The last one is a bonus, so stay tuned for that. The first thing we need to do is to be aware and identify those limiting beliefs about ourselves. We can't overcome them if we are not aware of them. So it's very important for us to take note of them. Think of those obvious ones, the ones that you don't even have to think much about. They are right there at the front of your mind. You know them. And the ones that even creep up when you least expect, and take note of them. Write them down actually, so that you begin to process them. The second thing we need to do is write something opposite to that self-limiting belief. So say, for example, on this side we have our self-limiting belief. The first one maybe is you are not good in sports, and therefore you don't take part in any sporty activity. Now the opposite to that would be, I love swimming. Take up a sport that you love and write it next to that line. So there's a self-limiting belief and the opposite of that. Now keep thinking of an opposite thing to that self-limiting belief you have. And with time, your mind begin to process things in a very different way. The Bible says that as a man thinketh, so he is. So what you think about, that is what you become. If you are constantly thinking about the opposite to a self-limiting belief, you begin to think differently. You can actually change the way you think about yourself. Now, the third and a very important thing that we need to do is get into a personal development journey. It's not a destination, it's a journey, because you go through it every day, every minute. This will greatly help you improve your mindset and see things differently. You can consider looking at the videos in this channel, because it's purely dedicated to personal development, and I am quite sure that you will pick a few things that will help you on that journey. I have covered a variety of topics that could be a good foundation to your personal development journey. And if this impacts you in any way, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel so that you get to know whenever I post something regarding these topics. Now, the fourth and a very freeing thought to have, the fourth point, is to know that everyone has a self-limiting belief they are battling. They just choose to keep showing up for themselves. That business person you admire so much, that social media personnel that you look up to, and that singer that you would want to meet and interact with, all these people have self-limiting beliefs. There's a self-limiting belief in every person, only that they choose to keep showing up, in as much as it might be very strong, they choose to show up with a different attitude. They approach it from a positive side and they keep showing up. That is how we counter self-limiting beliefs. Honestly, this gives me a lot of peace and helps me approach life with so much positivity, and helps me also not to beat myself so hard whenever I find myself in such a situation. Well, that's the end of our video today. Do you have a self-limiting belief? I hope these remedies that we shared here will help you counter it and help you to keep showing up for yourself as you should. Thank you for watching, and see you in one of my videos. Bye.